Welcome back to Seek the Edge podcast with me, Kelsey Lensman. And if you are on YouTube right now and you see the image, you will see me rocking one of the very first merch releases to Expand Your Limits, XYL. And you might be asking, Kels, what is XYL if you haven't seen our video? But the company that I own, EmpowHER Fitness, I love it, but it has served its time and it is no longer going to be going forward. That company has been rebranded with a new mission, a new vision, a new future to expand your limits. XYL for short. And with Expand Your Limits, in that 6-minute YouTube video that some of you might have seen, if not, I'll talk to you about it, is I talked about the new mission. I talked about the new vision. I talked about why it is a thing. But what I didn't talk about in that video is the whole 8+ years and 8+ months it has taken to get to where I'm at today. The highs, the lows, the challenges, the behind the scenes, the things that nobody knows, honestly, nobody knows what has gone on to get me to where I'm at today and why I'm so incredibly passionate. And I feel like God has put me on this earth to elicit this potential in women. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, you're like, Kels, what YouTube video? What are you talking about? Go ahead and go onto our YouTube channel, Expand Your Limits, and it also has / Kelsey Lensman, and you will see a trailer video. It is a 6-minute, 15-second trailer video. And that entire trailer video explains what the rebrand is and what our future is. And a little behind the scenes already, that video, guys, oh my gosh. I am not a video editor. I give so much mad respect to video editors. That took me way too long to put together. It just took way too long to put together. So thank you for all the comments. Thank you for all like, oh, Kels, like this was sick or it was communicated well. That was one of my biggest hesitations going to that video is I shot that video actually last Saturday. This comes out this upcoming Thursday. And I shot that video last Saturday. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but when I was communicating, like usually I can talk decently well. I know some of you might be questioning that on the podcast, but I can usually communicate the message pretty well and what it's about. But for some reason that Saturday, it was like my brain was glitching out. I would say a sentence, and then while I'm saying the sentence, my brain was like, why are you saying that? Like it did not come out the way that I wanted to. However, when I pulled that video together, I actually prayed about it. I'm like, God, please give me just the creativity to make sure that this is communicated correctly. And I was actually very proud of that video. I was very proud of what the vision is and how it was communicated. Obviously, it can always get better, but go and watch that video and it will explain everything of what Expand Your Limits is going to become. But like I said, what I didn't explain in that 6-minute video is the entire behind the scenes. I know for me personally, like I really am inspired by Nick Bare and what he's built with BPN. And one of the things that I value the most about him and his journey is how transparent he was and is in building the company what it is today. And how he's a guy from Pennsylvania and he had this thought, this idea, this dream, and he has persisted through so many adversities or challenges and highs and lows to build what he has built to that day. And people can look at him and his company and the mission and the movement that he's bringing to the hybrid athlete world, and they can see it and be like, oh man, like he must have something that I don't. Or man, like what he's doing is amazing. Like I can't even imagine doing something like that. And I value what he's brought through YouTube and through his podcast, but because he talks about, I'm just a regular guy from Pennsylvania, but I've built these characteristics within myself and overcame some challenges and adversity to do something great. And I connect with that. Not that this business is anywhere near where BPN is yet. You'll see I say yet. But I value that because people saw that video and people see the rebrand launch and people see, you know, what our vision is for Expand Your Limits and what it's going to bring to this world. But people don't see, this would have been 2017, which I know is short comparatively to a lot of people's business journeys, but 2017 up until this 2024, they don't see the 7+ years of brick walls that were hit, or challenges that were worked through, or highs that I gained, but also lessons that I learned, or failures that I had to endure. They don't see that behind the scenes. And so they commend me for the Kelsey they see today, but I never want to put myself on a pedestal to be like, oh yeah, I have it all figured out. One, I don't. But I don't want to put myself on that pedestal because it's important to me to elicit to women, and especially young girls, of if you have perseverance, if you have commitment, if you have courage, you can build something epic too. And I'm going to show you through this process the highs and lows and everything in between to truly what it takes to build something. And I love the verb build because to build means it's active, right? I'm building something. I'm active in every day. I like to think of like building a house. Like I put this brick on, and then I make sure that brick is laid beautifully. And then I put this brick on and make sure that brick is laid beautifully. And over time, you're focusing on just laying a brick. But over time, you take a step back and you see a whole side of a house. And I love that term build, because when I'm focused on just laying that brick perfectly or just laying that brick as best as I can, it allows me to be in the process and then take a step back to say, okay, yes, like we're moving in the right direction. And I relate that to people's also fitness journeys of like you're building, like it's an active process. It's not just once you get to this mountaintop, like, ooh, kumbaya. Like, no, you're continuing to build the person that you are. You're continuing for me to build the business that it's going to become. You're continuing to build everything that was, but also what's to come. And I think that's important to continue that process. So I'm going to give you the behind the scenes. We're going to take a look at 2017 up until now. And in each phase of the journey of building what is now Expand Your Limits, it is all led to 4 C's, which are actually our core values of Expand Your Limits. Number 1 is courage, having the courage to pursue, having the courage to step out. Number 2 is commitment, not just committing when it's fun, not just committing when it's enjoyable, not just committing when I want to, but to commit literally means to cut away from. Like, I am doing this through hell or high water. I am committing to this. I'm not interested in building this. I'm not interested in pursuing my fitness journey. I'm committed to it. So courage, number 1. Commitment, number 2. Confidence, number 3. To have the confidence through the process, not just in the outcome, but in the pursuit of every day, having trust within myself that I keep promises to myself, having confidence, in my opinion, in the man above, that he's put me here for purpose, on purpose, and I'm not just aimlessly walking around, having confidence to build what we want to build. And then last but not least, and you will hear me say this word a bajillion times throughout this entire journey, is community. To bring people together, to bring and challenge people together, to raise the bar, and to get around good humans that inspire you to grow. I firmly believe that we are not meant to do life alone. My opinion, God did not put us here to just look at 4 walls and tap on a computer. No. We don't do life alone. Life is meant to be with people and also for people. And so community is such an important value to me. So number 1, courage. Number 2, commitment. Number 3, confidence. And number 4, community. Throughout this entire 2017 up until now, you will see those 4 values continually work through. And I'll talk you through them. And as you dive deeper to this, you will also see that XYL, even the logo. If you guys look at my t-shirt right now, you'll see my t-shirt has the logo of XYL, the white branding. And everything is incredibly intentionally planned. I was actually just reading a Bible passage today in one of my Bible studies, and they said a lot of times we don't need to be taught something new, we need to be reminded. And that made me think about the intentionality with building this brand and the intentionality with the design process of I'm not just doing it, like I'm not just trying to search for something new, or I'm not just trying to put some pieces together. Like I was being very intentional with what our core values is. I'm being very intentional with what the logo is. And so you will see here with the L, that there's 4 little white lines, and with each white line, it gets even thinner. There is a whole story. There's a whole ethos. There's a whole message behind that L. And I'm actually posting it tonight about the story behind the L in XYL. And it's going to inspire you to reach new limits too. And so with that, I am going to take you back to 2017. We're going to bring it back to 2016, 2017, when I was at Ohio State in the sports medicine program. To give you context, my journey started while I was an athlete in high school, and I was in a really bad 4-wheeling accident my freshman year of high school. I actually have a YouTube video about it. And when I was in that accident, before that, I was going to play varsity. I was really destined to do some pretty cool things in high school sports going into my freshman year. In that summertime, I was in a really bad 4-wheeling accident. I remember we were about to go mudding, which if y'all are from Ohio, you know that you hit the mud and all the mud comes up. But I was riding with my friend, and as she hit the mud, the 4-wheeler spun out, flipped us up in the air. And I don't remember anything from when we hit the mud until we laid on the ground, completely blacked out. But in that time frame, I remember seeing the 4-wheeler completely smashed to the side. I looked up to my friend, and I was just in shock. I had no idea what happened. And as I looked up, she's like, "Hey, Kels, you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I felt fine." But then I tried to get up. And when I tried to get up, I couldn't put pressure on my right foot. And I was like, "What is this?" And I slowly looked down, and I saw my entire shin bone sticking out of my skin. I saw a white bone, and I'm like, "Oh, I am not fine." And in that moment, just sheer shock just overcame my body, which is why I didn't feel it. And so I was like, "Hey, I'm not fine. Obviously I broke my leg." And so we were about 1.5 miles away from her home. So she's an 8th grader. She starts running 1 mile home. I'm in a field in the middle of Ohio, and I'm holding my leg that I see the bone in. And I'll never forget this image. I just see blood pouring out. I know this is graphic, guys, but just be with me for a second. And I just remember thinking, I hope I don't die out here. And I know that sounds drastic, but when you're a young girl in a field and you just see blood pouring out, the first thing in your brain is I hope that I survive it out of here. Long story short, watch my YouTube video about my recent injury that goes into that story, but I ended up shattering my entire tibia and fibula, which is the lower legs. And when I shattered those, it also shattered my pursuit of pretty high-level sports my freshman year. And I remember the surgeon came up to me and he's like, "Kels, you're not going to play volleyball or basketball this year." And I didn't cry besides 2 things: morphine that went into my body, and I hated how it felt. That's number 1. And secondly, when he told me that I couldn't pursue playing basketball and volleyball, because that was what I did. That's who I was. And I said, "Watch me." Just watch me. So he ended up putting a big external fixator. I looked like Frankenstein on my lower leg. I had this massive metal rod coming out. It was one of the most gruesome things. If you see them, they just look disgusting. And so my entire freshman year summer, I couldn't walk. I wasn't walking for about 4 to 6 months, wasn't putting any pressure. And I remember the first time I stepped foot on my right foot, I completely fell over because I forgot how to walk. I didn't even trust my leg that it would support my body weight. And I thought, man, this is going to be a long process. So I ended up not playing volleyball that freshman year, played basketball. But as I reflect back on that journey, that's when my desire for sports medicine and the medical field really erupted in me. And going through that really hard moment, not just physically, but also mentally and emotionally. And I had, amazing friends and family there with me, but still being a 15-year-old girl and being left out of certain things or not being able to physically keep up and then questioning, am I going to be the athlete after? That was a pretty hard time frame. And so that was where the seed was planted for wanting to help people the way that the athletic trainers or the physical therapists helped me. So ever since my freshman year, that has been a desire for me of wanting to be in the medical world, because that those people completely changed my life at that time. So going into Ohio State, I remember this. I thought I was going to be a physical therapist. I thought I was going to major in physical therapy. And for those that are physical therapists or know the journey, you do not major in physical therapy in college. Like, it is a graduate degree, a doctoral degree. It is not a dinky little bachelor degree. And so I remember going to Ohio State and they're like, oh, Kels, like, what are you majoring in? You know, when your advisors ask you. And I say, I'm majoring in physical therapy. And they're like, no, you're not. I'm like, oh, what is it? What do you mean? So they said, obviously I couldn't major in physical therapy. So I had two options. I either pursued exercise science or I pursued athletic training. And for those that don't know what athletic training is that's the sports medicine side of sports. It is not just strength and conditioning training. It is injury rehabilitation. It is injury, evaluating injuries. It is making sure that the athletes are in top condition, not just physically, but also a lot from an injury prevention standpoint. So as I was at Ohio State, I actually rowed on the rowing team my freshman year at Ohio State. The most random thing, the hardest thing I've ever done. I remember when I was rowing, I would count ceiling tiles because you're just on the erg for 2+ hours. So I would count the dots on the ceiling tiles. I would count the cars that drove by. Like, it was a great transition for me as a human, and I didn't realize it at this time because I went from being the athlete in high school to I didn't pursue sports in college, even if I had an opportunity to. But then I rowed for them, so I still had practice. I still had a game. I still had things that I was looking towards, right? Like I had my crew of girls. I still had that same structure as an athlete, and I still identified as an athlete. So after my freshman year, they said, okay, Kels, you're either going to keep pursuing being an athlete at Ohio State because that's not a part-time job. Like, that's a full-time job being an athlete there and going to school, or you're going to pursue your sports medicine degree and you're going to pursue that sports medicine path. And I thought for a moment, I'm like, well, I'm not going to be a professional rower. That is not in my cards. So I'm going to choose my career path. And at that time, and reflecting back, it was a good decision. But at that time, I didn't understand the weight of that decision that it would have on me as a person, as it would have on me as my identity, as it would have on me mentally, emotionally. And I was loving life initially. I was like, oh, I don't have to go to practice. I don't have to do all the hard row. Like, I was loving life initially. But what I didn't realize is when I was no longer an athlete and I no longer had a game to work towards, and I no longer had people telling me what to do from a training standpoint, and I no longer had my team of girls, I realized how lost I felt in that moment. And as much as I loved the freedom initially, it made me feel like there was such a big part of me missing. I was getting the good grades. I was doing amazing in clinicals. I like, on the outside looking in, if you were to see the black and white, like, I was thriving. But on the inside looking in, I was missing myself. And to compound, I was in a tricky relationship, and so that ended. And I remember, and I share this story a lot, but I share this because it might hit home with some of you, is I remember walking in my bathroom. This would have been my sophomore year. And I just got out of a tricky relationship, and I was not really working out at that time, but I was getting the good grades. Like, I was doing the right things. And I remember walking in my bathroom, and I remember looking in the mirror. And I just remember looking into my eyes and not seeing the Kelsey that I always knew. I didn't see the excitement in her eyes. I didn't see the Kelsey, if that makes sense. Like, I saw a shell of her, but I didn't see her. And then also physically, I didn't look like myself. I wasn't working out. I wasn't training. I didn't have that part of my life. And I remember in that moment, and when I say rock bottom, I don't say that I was contemplating, my life. I wasn't, and I hate to compare journeys, but comparatively to some people, like, it wasn't even nearly a rock bottom. But for me in that moment, like, that was my low moment. And I remember staring back at myself and thinking, okay, Kels, you have a decision to make here. You either keep going the trajectory that you're on, you keep doing the right thing, getting the A's, but really not ever progressing or growing yourself, or you make a change. Yes, school is still important. Yes, clinicals and excelling in your career is still important. But you cannot sacrifice yourself, or not even just sacrifice. That's not the right word. You cannot fool yourself into thinking that you're doing okay when you know, if you were to be incredibly honest with yourself, you know that you're BSing yourself right now. You know that you're not happy. You know that you're lost. You know that you don't feel like yourself. And so I had to have that hard conversation. This is all just internally in my brain. I had to have that hard conversation to myself to say, okay, like you have to get you good. And at that time, I didn't even know what you good meant. Like, what does that mean? Get you good. What does that mean? But in that moment, for me, I just remember it being like, well, you're not working out right now. Like you haven't worked out in months. Like you might have walked on the treadmill. You might have like ran half a mile, but you're not even tapping into that part of you. And remember, guys, this was in college. This was before I had my strength training background. This is before I felt confident in a weight room. This was before I'm the person I am today. Like I was that regular girl in college, wanted to work out, wanted to look better, but really didn't know where to start. I had some good guidance in high school and college, but once again, that ended when sports ended. So I decided to get me good, and I decided to show up at the gym. And I was that girl scrolling on Instagram, finding the abs and arms day. I was that girl on the blogs or Googling, what's a good exercise for bicep? Like I was that girl. And that's why I think I relate to so many women and girls today, because they're like, oh, like you've always been like that. I was like, no, I was you. Like I was that girl that Googled that stuff. I was also that girl that had no freaking clue nutritionally what to do. No idea. And so when people would post their full day of eating, I would just follow that. Or when people would say, hey, be at these macros, I didn't even know what macros were, but I would follow that. And I've tried the low carb thing. I've tried the keto thing. Like I've done all the things that women that come to us do, which is why I relate so deeply to them. And as I was in pursuit of that, I remember I was working out with one of my friends, and he was like, Kels, like you're probably just eating too much. Like just lower your carbs. So I was eating, to give context, 80 grams of carbs a day. And to give you context, today the Kelsey that is talking to you is right now eating 330 grams of carbs, which is vastly different. And so I've done all those things, and I had no clue what I was doing. But I remember I just kept showing up. It was ugly. It wasn't pretty. I looked like a fool sometimes. I felt like a fool many times. But I just was persistent in the process. I just kept showing up. And I remember one person came up to me at the gym, and I've told you guys this story in the podcast, but I'll just share it real briefly, is they asked me like, hey, are you competing for something? Just because they kept seeing me come to the gym and show up, and they thought I was competing for something as a result. And I was like, no, like, what are you talking about? And they're like, are you competing for a bodybuilding competition? And I literally laughed in their face. I was like, you have to be out of your mind. Like, you have to have the wrong girl. And I said that because I didn't see that in myself. I still wanted to lose 20 pounds at that moment. But that thought, once again, that nudge sat in my soul. And as that nudge sat in my soul, I ended up a few months later hiring a coach. And I did my research of, who were some coaches locally. And I hired a coach because he had, I knew a few people that went to him, and he had really good reviews and they had great things to say. And so I hired him. And at that time, and this might hit with some of you, I felt like I failed as a person because I hired a coach. Because I was that girl to always just figure it out. I'll figure it out. I don't need to spend money on this. I'll figure it out. And I was that figure it out girl for 2+ years. But then I kept winding up being frustrated, and I didn't figure it out. And so I finally got out of the way. I got my ego out of the way also, and I hired a coach. And I always say that's when everything changed for me. That's when I was truly in the level up. And that's when my physique changed. That's when mentally I changed. And going here on forward, it was a different level for myself. So in pursuit of my own fitness journey, and for me that initially looked like bodybuilding, but I mean that could be anything. I remember I was eating more than I ever was, and I thought he was out of his mind. I was like, "Are you sure that you have me on the right plan? Because I'm eating like double, but I'm supposed to." I thought I needed to lose weight. Like I was that girl that I didn't know what I didn't know, and so as I was in pursuit of my own fitness journey and I was leveling up my own self, I would watch YouTube videos about motivation, and I would listen to podcasts, and I would Google about macros and recipes. Like I was truly in the process of my fitness journey, and I was so much in it. If you know me, I'm like, okay, like let's go all in. Like we're just not just gonna dabble in it. I'm gonna freaking do it if I'm gonna do it. So in that pursuit of that journey, I'm like, well, this kind of lights a fire. Like I'm passionate about this. So I ended up interning for a pretty elite strength and conditioning facility here in Columbus, Ohio in the internship of my senior year. And that was very different, guys, than anybody in my program did. People in my program would intern for athletic training internships and physical therapist internships. And I know that might sound similar to some of you, but in my little athletic training world, what I was doing was very outside of the box. It was very against the grain. A little bit less now in 2024, but back then it was like what are you doing, Kels? Like, are you just wasting your time? But I wanted to learn as much as I could about strength. I wanted to learn as much as I could about nutrition. I wanted to learn as much as I could about this entire fitness world. And so what better way than to put yourself in an environment? So I was working for a strength and conditioning facility in Columbus, Ohio. At the same time, once again, I'm somebody like, let's really soak it up. I'm like, I don't know anything about supplements. I mean, I know protein powder, but I knew nothing about creatine. I thought creatine was a steroid. I'm not joking at you. I thought it was a steroid back in the day. And so then I pursued working at GNC, which GNC, if for those that don't know, is a vitamin shop. And I just went all in to learn as much as I could about strength, about fitness, about nutrition, about macros, about supplements. Like I went all in on that. And remember, prior to my journey here, is I always wanted to be a physical therapist. That since freshman year, that was my North Star. So for about 8 years, physical therapy. Like that was my route. And I have so much respect for physical therapists, but I remember my senior year as I was really improving my life and realizing there's two folds to this. I was realizing how much all aspects of you played into it. So I would see people in my clinic or in the clinic, or I'd see people come to the athletic training room and they came for an ankle injury. But what I also noticed just in my journey, I was like, their mindset matters. How they're fueling their body matters. Like, yes, I know it's an ankle injury, but if we don't address them as a whole human, it won't get better. And so I saw things kind of separated there. And then on my personal end too, I was actually getting pretty good results. I had 3 bodybuilding competitions. I went to nationals. Like people could visibly see the difference in me. And people were noticing. And so they asked me for workout plans. I will never forget this. People would be like, hey, Kelsey, can you write me a workout plan? And what was mind-boggling to me is they said they would pay me. I'm like, wait, first of all, you want me to write you a workout plan and you'll pay me? Like, what? Like, it was just foreign to me. I'm like, yeah, I'll write you one for free. It was foreign to me that people would pay me for this. And as my jaw dropped and I was just amazed that people will pay me to write workouts, I would write these most elaborate workout plans, like to the extent I would pull my background from sports medicine and injury rehabilitation and injury prevention stuff. Like it was not just a, hey, do back squat. Like it was so elaborate, so detailed. I would do a full injury eval on them. I would do a full movement analysis. And those programs took me at least 3 days plus to write per person. And it was funny because they asked me, how much will you charge? And the first number that came to my brain was $20 for this elaborate program. It was $20. And I remember the boyfriend at the time that I had, he's like, Kels, you are not putting all this time, attention, and effort for $20. And I was like, okay, what about 30? And he's like, Kels, do you understand how valuable what you're giving them? I was like, okay, fine. I'm not going above 40. Like $40 is my max. I'm not doing it. So I ended up charging these people $40 for this one-on-one, elaborate, detailed, entire beautiful training program. And as I was sending these programs, I'm like, wait, like I need a name for these programs. Like at the header, I can't just say like leg day. Like what is the name? And as I was ideating the name of like, well, what am I going to call this? I was back and forth. This name, that name. Should I make it my name? Should I make it a different name? And I finally came down to, don't laugh at me. I came down to the name Kels.Elite Fit. For those that are my OGs out there, you might have been running one of these programs. Kels.Elite Fit. That was the very first name of anything that I've ever come up with. And I would have this cool black logo with like this purple, it was purple back in the day, this purple accent color. And why did I add the dot in there? I have no idea. No idea why I added the dot, but it was Kels.Elite Fit. And I was so proud of that name. And so that's what it was starting out. And so my senior year, as I was doing bodybuilding, and like I said, I would be in the clinic and see how just you would go to a physical therapist and then a nutritionist and then a therapist. Like everything was segmented. And then also on my flip end, I saw my journey and I'm like, well, shoot, if I can do it, anybody can with the right tools and coach. And my coach was so impactful in my day. And I remember reading this quote, and this is what mic dropped it for me. It was almost like a sucker punch into my gut of like, oh, I don't want to do this, but oh, I think I'm meant to do this. And it was the quote that, be the change you want to see. Be the change you want to see. That felt like a gut punch, a sucker punch in my gut, because I wanted to see a change. I wanted to see somebody taking into account you as a whole human. I wanted to see somebody truly care about the patients and clients that they have from a deep level, not just getting them in the door, writing them a script, and then leaving. Like I wanted to see a change in the system, and I also wanted to see a change in people that didn't think that they could do it. And so the back half of that is be that change. Don't just wait for it, be it. And that scared the living daylights out of me. Once again, back previous day, Kelsey, I was straight laced, baby. I would do the right thing. I would not push. I would not seek my edge. I would stay in my comfort zone. I would keep on walking. If you say, ooh, like, let's do this, or let's kind of challenge the limits that way, I'm like, no, that's not me. Like, I'm going to stay here because I thought that if it was uncomfortable, it wasn't meant for me. And so to acknowledge that I wanted to see different, and then to acknowledge to take the path of unknown, I cannot tell you how many times I cried myself to sleep at night because I was torn on whether or not to take this unknown path and start a business or to pursue physical therapy. And not that it was any easier, but it was known. And through that same time frame, if I didn't have my faith, there is no freaking way I would have started my business. As I was pursuing my fitness, I also had a tug on my heart to pursue my faith. And I grew up with it earlier, but then I kind of got away from it in college. And I as I was pursuing my faith, I would write these little note cards as I would read like a passage in the Bible. And I remember saying like, God, like, I don't know how to pray to you. Like, I don't really know if you're out there, but if you are out there, like, please just give me guidance and direction. And so I was in pursuit of my faith, very alongside of in pursuit of my fitness. And as I would go to church on the weekends and just get around those types of people, I just had such a God nudge of like, Kels, take the unknown path. Take the unknown path. And there was one moment that I was in church on a Saturday, And can't remember. I'll have to look up what this message was. But it was just such the confirmation for me that what I'm thinking to pursue, it's not random, that it's going to be unknown, that it's going to be scary, that it's going to be probably not the path of least resistance, but I knew that I had to pursue the God potential that he put on here for me. I knew that he was calling me to something greater. And like I said, and which is why I hit so deeply with so many of your messages, is I did not want to pursue it. It scared me. It made me question. But once again, be the change that you want to see. And so after undergrad, I'm so grateful for my parents. They really did believe in me in this time frame. I was so afraid. And I don't know why I was afraid, but I think it was just because it was different. I was so afraid to tell them, like, I'm not going to pursue physical therapy. But they were incredibly supportive of me. And I know not everybody's parents, or not everybody has parents that are supportive. And so it just was such a big part of my life. And I'm just so grateful for that. And so then that's when undergrad, I decided to start my business. And I decided to just go out on a limb and go full time. And it was so scary, guys, so scary. And I called it KML Movement, for Kelsey Marie Lensman. And it's funny because that name, that was its name for about 5 years. And with that name, the alphabet, it's LMNOP. So everybody would mess up. They would say KLM Movement, because that's like usually just the way that you say the alphabet. But that was my first name, was KML Movement. And I started with these 6-week challenges online. And with these 6-week challenges online, people would work with me one-on-one, and I'd give them a workout program. It was similar to what I was doing for my bodybuilding shows. And with these 6-week challenges online, we would try to get them results. And I was very much a health-oriented person. So sometimes in people in the online world and trainer world, all they care about is the result in 6 weeks. I was like, no. We're going to do this right. We're going to make sure you're fueling yourself enough. Even if that does not mean as much results in 6 weeks, it means that you're going to get results 12 weeks, 16 weeks, a year from now. And so even if it was 6 weeks, I was still very longevity focused and like, let's actually elicit a change in people. And I started with that. And I had 3 rounds of my little Train with Kelsey 6-week programs. Once again, if you're an OG, you'll remember this. And then that transitioned to working in person with people. And I was working in person here in Columbus. I was doing one-on-one personal training, but also helping people a lot through some chronic injuries that they had. I did not call it, I was not practicing as an athletic trainer or a physical therapist, but I remember them coming into me with low back pain or knee pain. And it challenged me to grow a lot as a practitioner, because when I was in athletic training and working in the clinics, I had E-stem. I had all the modalities that I could use to help people through it. Well, now being in gym, I have none of that. I have no modalities. So it challenged me to intricately learn about the body in a different way. For your low back pain, I couldn't just put some stem pads on you and make it feel better in a moment. I had to understand, well, why is that low back pain originating from? Well, could it be glutes? Well, what neurologically is going on with your body? Well, then could the glutes tie with your right shoulder and then your right hip? Like I almost called myself like I was a detective for the body. And in those like 2 to 3 year time frame, that's why I have such different methodologies with the body and the brain and neurology, because I had to take what I learned from sports medicine, digest it in my brain, and not utilize anything else besides your body and it healing itself. And hindsight 2020, it was great. Like that has been why, knock on wood, amen, that I've been able to keep so injury free during this entire journey of me being as an athlete, and then also helping hundreds of other people in low back pain and knee pain, because I was able to get to the root cause of it. And so at that time, I was doing our one-on-one personal training. I was also working at a local sport performance place called Bo Jackson Elite Sports, and I was their softball director of sport performance. So I had an entire multiple teams of softball teams for their travel that I would do their sport performance for. And that's where my origination of helping young girls was born. I mean, I would help these girls. Some were in elementary, some were going into college. And I connected so deeply with them. And so I was doing that also. And then I also was doing leadership training at that same facility. And so I would be a part of a leadership training there to help companies and their employees there. So as I was doing that, I will never forget when I was there, the place that I was at wanted to start an adult fitness program. Once again, I'm fresh out of college. I have no idea what I was doing. And I presented this adult fitness program to like these C-suite executives in Chicago. Once again, I had no idea what I was doing. I was a 21-year-old girl, had zero experience in business, talked with my dad a little bit about it, but still had no idea what I was doing. And as I would go in there, I remember I did this whole presentation. And so we decided to pursue the adult fitness program. And so I printed out these flyers. This is how gritty that I was back then and still am. And nobody was interested, right? Nobody's interested initially, especially for somebody that's just starting out. And so I was saying, well, if people aren't going to come to me, I'm going to go to them. So I had no idea that this was illegal at the time. So please do not take this advice and run with it. But I would put these adult fitness flyers in mailbox. I drove down about 5 different streets right around that facility. And I would hand put, I'll have to find the Instagram story video of this. But I would hand put these adult fitness flyers in mailboxes. And it was funny because I posted this on social media. And then I had people being like, Kels, do you know that that's illegal? And I was like, oh, no, I did not know that's illegal. But that comes with the first C of expand your limits. And that first C is courage. I had the courage. No, I did not have the confidence yet. No, I did not have the knowledge yet. No, I did not have the experience yet. No, I did not know the perfect path. But I had the courage to start something with so much unknown in the future. I took a leap without even knowing if my parachute worked. And I'm not saying that every single person, especially if you have a family and you're financially responsible people, I'm not saying that just take a leap and, have life figure itself out. Sometimes it's not that simple. However, it does take an incredible amount of courage to pursue something that is outside of what you're already doing. Incredible amount. And like I said, that might mean hire a coach. That might mean do something side gig on the side. That might not mean just jump off a ledge and, hope the parachute opens. Some of you, that might mean jump off the ledge and hope the parachute opens. But that's where that first C came in, is I had so much incredible courage to start that. And so as I was continuing, my one-on-one starting to grow, and I would do group fitness for women in the morning, which I love those women. They're probably still listening to this. They are my people. And so I would do these big group fitness classes for women. And I would get them lifting with a barbell and get them strength training. And then I would do one-on-one classes throughout the day, or one-on-one throughout the day. I'd have athletes come in. I'd have women come in. And I was just learning. I was learning about the body. I was learning about all this different stuff. And as anybody knows, when you start something, you have no idea what you're doing. No idea what you're doing. And so I was trying to figure it out. I was trying to just make ends meet, and it wasn't pretty sometimes. And it was, for lack of a better way to say it, I had no idea what I didn't know. Had no idea. And as I was pursuing this would have been going into 2019. I had a feeling that I wanted to pursue something different and bigger. Like I love my people one-on-one, but I didn't feel like I was meant to be a one-on-one trainer forever. Like I felt like I wanted to build something different and bigger, but I still valued them. And so I had a vision initially for building a facility. Oh, this is funny, guys. I had a vision initially for building a facility. And with that facility, I wanted to have a gym portion, but I also wanted to have a medical portion to it, because I saw everything so separate. And so I wanted to combine everything under one roof. I wanted to have the gym and the training and all of that, but I also wanted to have a physician and a physical therapist and a therapist and a nutritionist. Like, can we get everybody to actually work together versus be siloed? And I had that vision for many, many years. Like, that was my ultimate goal. So going into 2020, I was doing my one-on-one and I was kind of outgrowing that to an extent. And I wanted, actually, this is what happened. Oh, I remember this now. Is my friend actually passed away in a car accident. And I remember the weekend my friend passed away in a car accident. It once again just made me think about, like, what would Caitlin do in a way? Like would she kind of keep living life and just kind of going through the motions, or would she go after her big dream? And I said, Caitlin never got to continue her big dream. Caitlin never got to live out the life that she was living out because she was driven. Oh man, she was driven, and she was such a good human. She never got to live that out. And so the weekend that I found out about that, I actually started looking up facilities on LoopNet. I looked up facilities on LoopNet, and I found this one facility about 5 minutes away from where I live. And it was about 12,000 square feet. Oh my gosh, 12,000 square feet. And it was massive. And I would look at the building. My family came down. They would look at it. And we were progressing on it. Like, we were about to take the next step on it. And as we were about to take the next step, I was about to sign the papers. And let's say it's a Thursday that I was going to sign the papers for this building and pursue this building and get it and build out what that vision was, which I was not ready at that time, but I didn't know that. And so let's say on that Thursday, we're about to sign those papers. But what happened was Tuesday, COVID happened. Everything shut down. So when COVID happened, everything shut down. No longer was I going to sign those papers on the Thursday. And I remember in that time frame, I was sad. I was, what do I do? I was, where do I go? I have 30 plus women relying on me. It was just like a ball of, I don't even know what's going on. But I had to let this thing survive. And so I ended up not buying that building and not pursuing that building. And it is a blessing in disguise. I had nothing. I was not the person that I am today. I would not have been able to handle that building. And there's a great analogy. I'm going to end this podcast and then we're going to continue it going forward. But there's this store analogy that I thought was so great. Is a lot of people want these epic things. We want the body, we want the business, we want the family, we want the relationship. But we don't have the vessels built to hold that type of capacity yet. It doesn't mean that you can't do it, but it means that you have not built your vessel to hold that type of relationship or business or anything. And they related it to a wattage bulb, like a light bulb that you put up. Is a 60-watt light bulb cannot hold or emit any more than 60 watts. It won't be lighter than 60 watts. But if you get a bigger bulb, an 80 watt, a 100 watt, a 200 watt, I don't even know if that exists, but let's say it exists. If I get a 200 watt bulb, that vessel is built to be able to emit 200 watts of light. And what that analogy is I cannot be a 60 watt bulb, but expect myself or expect to emit 200 watts. I have to expand my light bulb. I need to expand my being to be able to hold that capacity to be able to emit what I want to. And so in that time frame, I was a 60 watt Kelsey, not ready to emit the 200 watts that would have been required of me with owning that building or with pursuing that venture. And so for me, it was a door that was closed by God, in my opinion, that was like, Kels, you're not ready yet. And yes, I was frustrated then. Yes, I was a little bit discouraged. But man, I look back, 4 years later, and I'm so incredibly grateful that that door closed, because now I have a different vision. Now I'm a different person. And now I would be able to handle something like that. Like I've built my vessel, my being, the Kelsey, I've built her to be able to now handle the adversities that come with that, to now be able to handle the highs and lows that come with that. But I wasn't ready at that time frame. And so that is where also the last C, and then I'm going to pause on this podcast and I will get to the next part of this story, which is also going to explain the vision next time. But that's where that next C came in, is commitment. During COVID, when everything shut down, my entire business went from everything online or everything in person to nothing. I could have so easily washed my hands, said I tried, said, man, COVID screwed me over. Man, this didn't go my way. I could have so easily, and many people did, say, well, I'm a victim of this circumstance. I guess I just can't do it. And instead of me assuming that posture, and instead of me assuming that position, I said, Kels, you have not built this so far to let it die. You have not built this so far to let it go off in the distance and say, oh, well, that could have been something amazing, but COVID screwed me over. Like that's not even an option. Like it wasn't even on the table. Like I did never for 1 second even let that enter my brain. It was a no option mentality. And when you commit to something, it requires a no other option mentality. I cannot be interested in building a business. I cannot be interested in pursuing a fitness journey. I cannot be interested in leveling up to the person that I am. Does that mean that you need to be all consuming, meaning your whole entire life or your whole entire personality is only that thing? No. You can still be a dynamic human. You can still be fun. You can still enjoy time with your girls or your guys. But it requires a level of commitment that means no deviation from the goal. And that is where this value came in the pursuit of building this business, is I was committed to making this thrive. I was committed to pursuing this. And you will see as I get into the next episode, after this commitment of transitioning from in-person to online, it was one of the second scariest decisions of my life that I made. It was also one of the most challenging phases of my life that I was in. And what comes next is something that changed everything for me. And so everybody, I'm going to leave us here with this episode. We're already 50 minutes in. And I did not think it was going to take this long, but I want to paint the picture of the journey. I don't just want to paint the outcome of what you see Expand Your Limits to be, or what epic things are going to come in the future. The building of this has been cultivated over time. The building of this has been cultivated with me building myself as a person, not just the company that I'm building. And so I hope that this inspires you. I hope that this transparently shows you what the journey has been. And I hope this gives you an ounce of hope to say, well, shoot, if Kels can do it, what can I do in my life that I might not think that I can do? And that's what so many others, the Nick Bears of the world, the other people that I listen to, that's what they did for me. They gave me that ounce of hope to say, I'm not where you're at today, but I know that you were just some guy from Pennsylvania. I know that you were just some girl from Ohio. And in my opinion, you're not just some girl from Ohio. You are placed for purpose, on purpose. In my opinion, God has placed you here for a reason. But it can feel some days like we're just a girl from Ohio, just a guy from Pennsylvania. But just a girl from Ohio with a little bit of courage, with a whole lot of commitment, can do something great if we keep ourselves grounded in that. And we keep, my opinion, keep ourselves grounded in that faith part of it. And so next episode, everybody buckle up. We're going to go through the second phase, how our events got started, what the vision is for Expand Your Limits. And for those athletes that are competing this weekend, because I know some of you are listening to this, play all out. Expand your limit this weekend. We did not come here to play it safe. We came here to frickin' go for it. And so I'm incredibly excited to see y'all in Columbus if you're coming to Columbus. I know we also have Seattle, Washington, and also Rock Hill, South Carolina coming in hot. So athletes, have an amazing weekend. If y'all are listening to this and it's before Saturday, October 26th,
Come out to the Columbus location. It is from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Armory. I would love to see you all there. And male and female can come. Our women are lifting. They're already signed up, but male or female can come, spectate, and enjoy the day. And let's take this to seek the edge, but also expand your limit of what you're capable of.